And hello, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. Happy New Year, and thanks so much for streaming with us today. Breaking news as the FDA authorizes Pfizer boosters for children ages 12 to 15 as students also return to the classroom amid the Omicron surge. We'll talk to Dr. Patel in just a moment about what this all means in the fight against COVID. Travel chaos across the country caused by both severe weather and pandemic staffing shortages. 2.5 million people expected to fly today after 5,000 flights are canceled over the holiday weekend. More than 1,700 more canceled already today. And if you're feeling lucky in 2022, grab a Powerball ticket. Tonight's jackpot, $522 million. But first, the latest on the fight against COVID for you. The U.S. averaging a record-shattering more than 400,000 cases per day. Hospitalizations up only 30%. And some positive news, too. Deaths are actually down 4%. All of this as millions of our kids are heading back to school today. ABC's Trevor Alt is in New York with the latest for us.
The new year is off to an unprecedented start with record-breaking levels of COVID infections across the country. Cases skyrocketing more than 200% in the past 2 weeks. On average now more than 400,000 reported a day, more than ever before.
Well, we are definitely in the middle of a very severe surge and uptick in cases.
The Omicron variant triggering explosive outbreaks in areas like Puerto Rico. New infections there increasing 4,490%. And hospitalizations, while lagging, are on the rise. Patient numbers in New York mirroring the levels of this time last year.
The real bottom line that you want to be concerned about is, are we getting protected by the vaccines from severe disease leading to hospitalization?
Dr. Fauci says the CDC may now update some of its new guidance, potentially recommending people with asymptomatic infections and no fever get a negative test before ending their isolation at 5 days. And there's growing concern for children. Just last week, the nation reported a 66% increase in children admitted to the hospital because of COVID-like symptoms. The FDA now authorizing booster shots for 12 to 15-year-olds, but the youngest kids, still fully unvaccinated, are still at risk.
The high fevers came in waves. She just laid on me, basically, for 3 days straight.
Sarah Barlow's 2-year-old daughter tested positive and spent 4 days in the hospital.
It can get bad. It's not just a simple cold for everybody.
And now America's schools are weighing whether to reopen. Dozens of colleges are already gearing up to start their semesters online. Atlanta Public Schools is switching to online-only classes this week. But in New York City, about 1 million students are expected to be back in person with new COVID safety measures.
We lost almost 2 years of education. We can't do it again.
And all of that demand for testing is in many instances now slowing down the wait for results. One of the nation's largest testing companies, Quest Diagnostics, tells ABC their average processing time has gone from about 1 day to now 2 or 3 days. And with Omicron's transmissibility, that extra time can make a big difference. Kira?
Sure can. Trevor Alt, thanks so much. Let's talk more about this with our physician at Stanford Children's Health, Dr. Alok Patel. Happy New Year. Did your baby girl keep you up all night?
Happy New Year to you, Kira. She did. She, in between watching New Year's Rockin' Eve and the ball drop, she made it until about 8 p.m., which is a record for her. And at 8 p.m. on the West Coast, here somewhere. So victory.
Outstanding. She's now officially made it through her first New Year's Eve. All right, let's talk about the FDA. It's now authorized the booster shots for 12 to 15-year-olds. How will getting that age group boosted, Alok, help in schools and just the overall spread of Omicron right now?
Well, Kira, in terms of getting it to help with schools, it's not going to make the biggest difference right away. Because remember, the FDA approved this today for 12 to 15-year-olds, which means even if theoretically every single eligible 12 to 15-year-old went out right now and got the shot, you're not going to see the effect of that for maybe 1 to 2 weeks. Schools are opening today, and we have to be realistic here. The 12 to 17-year-old age group, only about 50% of them are even fully vaccinated with the primary series. So we still have some work to do, which is why layered protection right now is still so important to curb the spread as so many schools are reopening.
Right. And, we've been talking about that all morning. Millions of kids actually heading back to school today. But then we heard from the education secretary saying that many school districts that are trying to reopen are experiencing a lack in staff because of COVID. So how do you think schools should be handling this? And do you think that they even have the right tools to remain open for in-person learning at this point?
This is such a difficult quandary, but I do think that every district out there should be doing what they can to prioritize a safe in-learning experience. That's what's optimal for kids' behavioral, social, academic growth. Also, in some cases, it's important for nutrition and safety. But Kira, you nailed it on the head. In some places, there's a huge lack of resources, not only with staff, but in the ability to actually give layer protection to those kids. Some places that want to do the test for stay method, they're not getting their test results back in several days, as Trevor just mentioned. And so in those situations, it may make sense to delay the opening for 1 to 2 weeks, but that is not the direction we want to go in. We want to do what we can to keep those schools in an in-person safe environment. And for some parents out there who have at-risk kids, maybe a hybrid option is what we need right now.
Oh, we're definitely going to see how this progresses, right? We also heard in Trevor's piece that the new year is off to a pretty unprecedented start with the cases already skyrocketing in just the past 2 weeks. So you've got new infections in Puerto Rico, for example, right? Increasing by more than 4,000%. What do you think these numbers mean for the next few weeks, and especially after all the holiday travel, the New Year's gatherings, the Christmas, everything?
I don't know if, Kira, you were trying to get the hair on my back to stand up, but you just did, because when you come all of that together with increasing cases, plus we're going to see a rise in cases for people traveling back, and we see this critical shortage in hospitals across the country, with multiple states reporting a critical staffing shortage. We have an unprecedented amount of new positive cases, which inevitably, a small percentage, are going to turn into hospitalizations. We got to look at the direct effect from Omicron, and that's people getting sick, but also the indirect effect of exposures. When you have doctors, nurses, paramedics, respiratory therapists, pharmacists, techs, all these people who are critically needed for healthcare access being taken out of the workforce. So even if this doesn't affect you, if you don't go and catch COVID, this could inevitably affect ER wait times, procedures, everything we need for public health.
Just the big backup, right? Well, Dr. Fauci says that the CDC may now update some of its new guidance, potentially recommending people with asymptomatic infections and no fever to get a negative test before ending their isolation at 5 days. What do you make of that?
What I make of that is, yes, finally, good. And to be completely honest, a lot of people out there were already following this recommendation as dictated by their local public health departments, like what was happening in California. If you need a snapshot of whether or not you're contagious, rapid antigen is the way to go. And in some situations where you don't have access to that, you do need to be wearing a high quality mask, which hopefully will also be in the new updated guidance. It's just not realistic to be able to say that we're going to be able to have everyone after 5 days of no symptoms go back out there and not cause more exposures, which will take people out of the front line, out of the critical working force. So we're all looking forward to seeing those updated.
Definitely. And the demand for COVID testing, slowing results. We've been talking about this. Quest Diagnostics now going from one day average to 2 to 3 days on average, according to Trevor, who we just heard from. What does that, or how does that impact Omicron's transmissibility, you think?
Well, you think about how quickly you need to see those results to make a safe decision for yourself, your environment. And if you're getting results back in 2 to 3 days, what does that individual do in that meantime? Does somebody stay home and quarantine because of an exposure? If you have a child who's going to school and your child's result isn't back in time, does your child stay home and then inevitably you have to stay home, which is a huge impact for a lot of families? I mentioned tests to stay. I actually heard from a parent in Boston who told me that these tests are taking 3 days back, which is a harrowing place to be. If you had an exposure, you need to know. It's just a shame that after so many months, we still have this supply chain issue when they're doing it differently, and they have been in other parts of the world. So I definitely hope to see it ramps up. And if it doesn't, people just need to remember those masks still work.
Yes, they do. Dr. Alok Patel, great to see you. Happy New Year as we enter 2022.
May it be a better year, Kira.
Amen to that. Well, as many of you are trying to head home today, this blast of winter weather is in motion, and it's gaining momentum by the minute. Take a look at this. The president arriving back in D.C. here after his holiday weekend, carefully walking down those stairs at Joint Base Andrews before getting into the Beast for what will likely be a very slow ride to the White House, where snow is coming down pretty hard right now. Beautiful picture there of the White House live. ABC News Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z is also tracking this for us. Hey, Ginger.
Oh, Kira, ooh, the bottom is falling out temperature-wise here, but all the precipitation has been south. So let's go ahead and start with where we know it snowed and is snowing. Trenton, Georgia. You can see the pictures there. Quite a few accidents. We had anywhere from 6 to even 9 inches of snow from Alabama right through Tennessee. Of course, higher elevation helps you get more snow. Asheville, North Carolina, just west into the mountains, up to 5 inches. They've had power outages, more than 100,000 customers without power throughout parts of Appalachia because of this, because it comes not only with snow, but considerable wind too. So it's this storm that's going to be sliding quickly across, and Birmingham, Alabama, even on some of the grassy areas, picking up enough snow to stick. But they're going to be fine this morning because it has moved so quickly and will keep moving so quickly. As you watch from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, South Jersey, going to get some of those higher totals. The cutoff is very strong. So it looks like New York City to the north, nothing. Eastern Long Island, parts of the Cape could get some, but look, it's all gone by 7 p.m. tonight easily by most folks. Richmond, Virginia will get some of that backup snow, and they've already had cancellations of flights this morning. Now, wind chills, holy cow, that's the real big picture across the entire nation, because you have freeze warnings from Texas over through Mississippi. New Orleans, for example, Kira, was in tank tops on, New Year's Eve. They had record high temperatures last week. Wind chill this morning, sub freezing.
Wow, quite a switch. Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z, thank you so much for all of that. Now let's head over to New Mexico, where 21 people were finally brought to safety after being stranded overnight on a freezing tram that was actually dangling over the mountains. Those survivors are now speaking out. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman has all the details for us.
That dramatic New Year's Day rescue, 21 people stranded for hours on 2 trams in freezing conditions. On New Year's Eve, with the weather turning, those workers from the restaurant and tram at Sandia Peak in New Mexico were hustled into the tram cars for what's normally a 15-minute ride down the mountain.
8:45, we're out the door. We get into the tram. We start going down, and then suddenly we stop.
High wind and ice on the cables forcing operators to stop the tram. But hour after hour ticked by. Amber Santos says at first the mood was festive.
Happy New Year's, guys!
By 4 a.m., though, they got even more bad news. Rescuers couldn't respond until at least daybreak.
It's freezing. The condensation on the roof from all those breathing was turning into icicles.
The wind batting the tram car around.
We were swinging back and forth like a swing. We were in a whiteout for most of the night.
Amber says she started to fear the worst.
You're shivering. Your feet are frozen. You're like, am I going to die in this tram car?
Finally, at around 9:30 a.m., about 12 hours later, Amber says the first rescuer reached their tram.
Search and rescue.
Amber says the rescuers attaching a rope to a pole in the middle of the tram.
One by one, they harnessed us in and they rappelled us down. Like, they did all the work. Search and rescue did all the work.
Once they got down from the tower, the survivors then walked about 200 yards to a rescue helicopter, which finally flew all of them off the mountain and to safety. Kira, they managed to survive those frigid hours. I mean, it went down to 20 degrees. There were icicles on the ceiling, on the floor, by huddling together for warmth and by sharing the few provisions they had, including a couple of bottles of water and, you can't make this up, a bag of Lifesavers candies. Now, I spoke to Amber Santos last night. She said that she is still pretty shaken up, as are some of her coworkers, and can't imagine having to go back into a tram car again. Luckily for those workers, the tram is shut down because of the incident through at least Thursday. Kira.
No doubt. Also grateful as they enter this new year. Matt Gutman, thank you so much. Well, coming up this week, marking the 1-year anniversary of the infamous attack on the Capitol. When we come back, the latest details from that ongoing House investigation. And welcome back. We are so glad you're with us here on ABC News Live. You know, this week marks the one-year anniversary of the insurrection on our nation's capital. Our new poll with Ipsos shows that more than 70% of Americans now believe that that riot was a threat to our democracy. And most people believe that former President Donald Trump bears a share of the blame. Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl has more for us.
The more we have learned about January 6th, the more horrifying it has become. From the attacks on the police officers who tried to hold the mob back.
They tortured me. They beat me.
This is how I'm going to die, defending this entrance.
To just how close the rioters came to members of Congress as they fled. Vice President Pence, we've learned, was rushed to an underground parking garage just as a group of rioters came looking for him, calling for his execution. We knew that then President Donald Trump never called to check in on his vice president during the siege. But when I interviewed Trump nearly 2 months later for my book Betrayal, he was not only unconcerned, but actually defended those chanting, "Hang Mike Pence."
Were you worried about him during that siege? Were you worried about his safety?
No, I thought he was well protected, and I had heard that he was in good shape. No,
you heard those chants. That was terrible. I mean,
he could have. Well, the people were very angry.
They're saying, "Hang Mike Pence."
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right?
Yeah.
How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
And we've learned about the incredible lengths that Trump and his allies went to pressure Pence before the riot, trying to get him to block Biden's election victory. In the years since, some Republicans have condemned Trump's actions, but many more have tried to stay in his favor, blocking the creation of an independent commission to investigate the riot and even echoing his lies about the election. Congresswoman Liz Cheney is one of the few Republicans to call for a thorough investigation, and she was punished by fellow House Republicans and stripped of her leadership position. But with Cheney and Adam Kinzinger as the sole Republicans on the January 6th committee, we are learning more about what was happening inside the White House as Trump's supporters attacked the Capitol, including the frantic text messages sent to then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows from people close to Trump, even his eldest son.
Donald Trump Jr. texted again and again, urging action by the president. Quote, "We need an Oval Office address. He has to lead now. It has gone too far and gotten out of hand."
Hanging over the investigation is the question of accountability. While more than 700 people have been charged for taking part in the riot itself, none of the political figures behind the effort to overturn the election have faced any consequences. Will any of them, even Trump himself, be held accountable?
John Karl, appreciate that report. And ABC News Live will have full coverage of the one-year anniversary of the attack on our nation's capital. That's this Thursday. You can also watch the new ABC News documentary, Homegrown, Standoff to Rebellion, examining the events leading up to the attack this Wednesday. That'll be on Hulu. And then Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on ABC News Live. Well, coming up, the grassroots organization that sparked a movement across the country by fighting hunger from a community level. And welcome back to ABC News Live. So glad you're with us in this new year. Well, it started with a single fridge, but now there's hundreds across New York and in cities around the country. It's a grassroots organization that has helped spark a movement by fighting hunger on a community level. Our ABC News Live Prime anchor Lindsay Davis has the story for us.
Nothing in the freezer, right?
No, nothing.
May 18th is always a difficult day for Selma Raven. 8 years ago, her 21-year-old son, Michael, a passionate health food advocate known for his "no one should go hungry" mantra, passed away. Today, Selma finds herself honoring his memory by doing what he loved most, feeding their neighbors in the Bronx.
He was a catalyst for this, but what's running it now is the neighborhood, the people, and really the whole community behind it.
Selma, along with her partner Sarah, started what they believe was the first community fridge in the Bronx just as the pandemic began. Every day for the past year and a half, they spend time stocking a curbside fridge full of fruits, vegetables, sandwiches, and other essentials, all free of charge, thanks to local donations.
It's people in the neighborhood, it's pantries nearby, it's a larger organization once in a while saying, hey, we've got some extra food. We've gotten a farm to come on, and now they're doing drops once a week, bringing large quantities of food from organic farms upstate.
It's all about feeding the need, and the need is great. Just as quickly as the food is delivered, it seems to disappear. Selma and Sarah estimate their fridge alone is feeding 220 people a day, with neighbors volunteering to help keep the pantry stocked around the clock and facilitate donations. In Brooklyn, Beatriz Perez and the taxi cab service she works for are running an operation of their own.
It's just a plain office, and then we set up the tables.
Her boss noticed community fridges popping up on social media. She says their Phoenix fridge is helping more than 1,000 local families get meals weekly.
We lost a lot of drivers. They passed away because of COVID. So we saw the need for our tenants. It's given us a different meaning of life. We've become very family-based with many people who come for food.
Bronx-based artist Laura Alvarez has taken note of that new meaning of life, all because of Selma's friendly fridge.
I think I've seen the change in the culture. Like before, you didn't matter if 2 apples will go to waste in your place, but now instead of letting go to waste, you bring them to the fridge, you leave them there, and maybe there's something that you might want to get.
Laura has painted designs on 12 different fridges now, illustrating the message behind their mission.
Take what you need, leave some for others, coge lo que necesites, deja algo para los demás. That was something that we decided to write on the shed and on the fridge, because when we started, it was basically free food, and that was creating some issues on people coming and just taking the whole fridge. So we decided to word it a little different, and that way it's been working pretty well.
The concept has worked so well that locally sourced community fridges have spread throughout New York City amid the pandemic, thanks in large part to In Our Hearts NYC, a grassroots organization that helps connect fridges and food suppliers with hosts through social media. The group has had a part in setting up fridges outside bodegas and apartment buildings in every borough and has now expanded their reach to help other communities battling food insecurity. Chicago, Nashville, Los Angeles, and Miami, just to name a few. And the need continues to grow.
Our estimates are more than 60 million Americans reached out and got support from the charitable food sector in this country during the pandemic. We continue to see elevated levels, and the challenges we faced were just the sheer demand, the levels of need out there.
There are certain fridges where as soon as we drop off food, within an hour, it's empty. You'll see our cars pull up and then immediately grab everything.
So many people are displaced. I just believe that we as a community can help each other, and we have all the power to.
This is a Band-Aid to a very big problem within the country. There's a real systemic issue in this. Living in this country of America, we have an abundance of resources, and everyone should have access to food no matter what their situation is.
And while many fridges are finding creative ways to keep their help yourself pantries stocked, most lack the resources to truly solve food insecurity in their neighborhoods.
We've never received any funding. We sit for hours applying for grants. This is a genuine interest. Even though you see this food now, it'll be gone in about 30 minutes. And fridges all over. We need trucks, we need transportation. We need agencies understanding that there is a real need. Why do we need to go through all these red tape to get funding?
But Selma and Sarah say they'll keep on pushing to try to combat food insecurity at the neighborhood level, continuing Michael's mission with each meal.
I think he would be very proud of us. He was a big believer in, together we can really make a big difference. Neighbors helping neighbors.
And our thanks to Lindsay Davis for such a beautiful story. Well, I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks so much for joining us today. Please stay with us as the news continues with the latest context and analysis right here on ABC News Live.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.